Daja Ping An. Thank you. It's so surreal to be back here. I think it was about 3 years ago that I was able to share a little bit, and can't believe it's been 3 years since I was here, and I just feels like home. Just to come up over, look out, is it Skytop? I guess Skytop Mountain, and I'm back, and the moon was rising, and I wish I was able to be here a lot longer than this time. I hope we'll have some fun today in the message, that you won't fall asleep. And no, not him, you. So, and I'm going to start off with a little bit of a quiz to see if you can find the error in my message that's going to be at the beginning, okay? See if you can find this. This is a test. So, I was a college student at Penn State. They didn't have Interstate 99. We'd drive in through, I don't know what, what was that? I don't even remember the road. And then we go by the state penitentiary, and my dad said, "Oh, this is where you're going now," you know. So he would write me a letter, 318 Hamilton Hall, State Pen. And it got to my dorm room mailbox. Graduated in 1980. I can't believe I graduated in 1980. That it's been that long. We have 5 children. They all graduated from Penn State while we lived in China. That was kind of really unique. They went away to school, home, and so you would know some of them. We moved back to Happy Valley in 1992, to work with Chinese students and Asian American students. And then our son Jared, our 4th, was born here. And the end of the week, I'll get to see them in Westchester with their 4-month-old baby. So it's kind of fun to, he was born here, and then we're going to go there. So can't believe that he's a dad now. Are you picking up on the error? Okay, next slide, please. Today we're going to do 3 things. We're going to look at James chapter 4, and you can turn there if you have a Bible with you. We're going to look at Habakkuk 2, and then I will be giving you a little bit of an update about some of my experiences in China in the last year or so. I was able to be there in April in 3 cities. And during that part, I would love if there's time, feel free to ask a question then or later. The next slide, please. Audrey and I this was about 2 weeks ago, we celebrated our 42nd wedding anniversary, and she has just finished 50 years with Crew, and it's just for the money to get that watch, she stayed on 50 years. So she's just finished 50 years and still has a heart to impact people with the gospel, see people get grounded in their faith, and then become influencers for Christ. This next slide just shows real quick our children. Some of you would know Amanda. She's actually had a health issue this summer in D.C. area. We've been there a lot. It's been challenging, but she flies out Friday, Lord willing, for Africa to return to embassy work. And some of you know Justin. They've got 4 children. Rachel's in Pittsburgh serving with international students, and Jared's the one in the Westchester area, really involved with their churches, and Jason's in Nashville now. 5 grandchildren, and then this next one shows Rachel, I think, and Rachel's, I think some of you would know her. She's in Pittsburgh working with international students. Okay, this next one, we have the opportunity to serve with Crew still, and what's called church movements. And our ministry globally will usually have a campus focus, and then they'll have a focus in community ministry. It could be prisons, it could be executives, it could be high school. And then we have a third part that's serving the church to help people have greater impact for the gospel and to see churches multiply, small groups multiply. So that's the part that my wife and I are in now, and we're just loving it. We get to work, and I'll share some stories at the end. So let's look at James 4, 13 through 17. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we'll go to such and such a city, spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. For you are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. So for one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, it is sin. It's interesting, the context for this chapter in the book of James. It's just such a mountaintop of understanding of God's wisdom. If anyone lacks wisdom, ask him. And so I want to look at James 3:17 as kind of a context for this. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere, and a harvest of righteousness sown in peace by those who make peace. And so it's interesting in light of this wisdom that God gives us to all who ask in faith. Then this chapter gives some contrast about living in that wisdom. And it's interesting, verse 4, we see that if we're friends of the world, we're enemies of Christ. That's verse 4. So there's that contrast. We can have this, friends of the world, enemies of God. Verse 6 talks about pride and humility. And so there's that context that he loves the humble, he's opposed to the proud. So if we walk in wisdom, we're challenged to live in humility, and there's that contrast. Verse 7 talks about if we resist the devil, he'll flee. And so, and then we have the opportunity to resist, we stand. And so we see to fight the devil, to see him flee, we stand in Christ, in his grace. And so there's that contrast of fleeing and standing. And then I love verse 8 that if we come near, draw near to God, he will draw near to us. And so it's not a contrast of opposites, but it's like if we draw near to him, he will draw near to us. So this fifth contrast is the one I want to look at the most. Verse 13, come now, you say, tomorrow we will. And I think that's a key part of this passage. It's we will. This is what we're going to do. We're in charge. We're in control. We're the ones. We're going to do what we want to do. And we don't know. We don't know tomorrow. I don't know if you saw the floods in Nepal. I just have been struck by the severity of them and the suddenness. You see people running and this wall comes down. None of us have a guarantee for tomorrow. And so there's a contrast of what we will do, and then verse 14, but you do not know. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. So it's this, again, this contrast of what we want to do based on this is going to go forever. The way it is today, it's not going to change. We're good. And yet we do not know what life will be like tomorrow. And so this verse 14 says, you do not know what will be like tomorrow. For you are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes. For me, this has been a life passage of challenge and calling and encouragement. And I remember at Penn State, when I was a freshman, I got invited to a group of guys in a small group Bible study from West Halls, near the rec hall on campus. We're going to go camping. And so they had a weekly meeting that night, and I didn't really know what was going on. And the person was talking about the needs in the world and how laborers were short and challenging people to consider serving for the gospel. And this was the verse that they used. And I don't ever remember hearing it before that point and thinking, wow, it didn't feel like my life was a vapor. I'm a freshman, right? I'm here to get ready for what's next in a career. But they were challenges. If you think of eternity being like a long line, our life is like a dot in light of eternity. And I think of it, if the tech people at the back could make a 3D, it's more like eternity is like this, and we're somehow in the middle of it. We're still very finite in light of the infinite. So that was a challenge for me to live my life in light of what was eternal, not what was the vapor that was my number of years of life. And so I don't know if anyone got the test. What was my error in the intro? Anybody know? What?
I'm just curious because I missed something. How many kids do you have?
5.
When you came back to the States,
Our youngest, we moved from campus ministry in the state of Indiana to Penn State. Then he was born in 94. And our 5th was born in Beijing. So that's not the error. That's true. Our 5th was... in light of this scripture, right, we're told life's a vapor, life's short. It's like a mist that appears for a while and vanishes. If that's true, we shouldn't be saying, I can't believe it's been 3 years since I've been here. I can't believe that my son who was born in Mount Nittany Hospital has a 4-month-old baby. I can't believe that, right? That betrays that I can't believe that time goes fast, right? So that was the message of our time here. And so I just kind of joke with Christians that when we say, I can't believe summer, you didn't say it, I wish you would have. I can't believe summer's over, right? Why can't we believe it? Because when something's over, it seems like it went by fast. And so our lives are like that, but it doesn't always feel that way. July 3rd might have been a slow day for you, or there might have been challenges this summer, it might have been slow. So I had the opportunity to have a reminder of this scripture almost every day. We lived in China 15 years, and tea is an amazing benefit of living in China. And especially when we were new there would be these boiled water dispensers in universities and offices and the airport, and you'd bring your tea and you put the leaves in, and then you drink it all day. And some people, the leaves would build up, it would get better and better, and you just keep adding water during the day. And so I'd have a reminder of getting this boiled water, seeing the vapor that appears for a little while and vanishes. It was a reminder of my life. And so back to when I was a college student, what are the things that will last for eternity? If our life's temporal vapor, we should say, don't just say what we want to do. God, right? God's eternal, always has been, always will. His word, says his word will last forever. People, he's created people, will last regardless of our destiny after life. It's eternal. And then the third are the good works in 1 Corinthians 3 that pass through the test of the fire. The works we do that honor the Lord out of love will go through that. Will be like the gold and the silver and the precious jewels that will honor him in a mysterious way somehow in eternity, will glorify him. So our works that are done in his name and for his glory will last forever. So I was a business major. I was wanting to go to University of Penn, get a grad degree, make a company, get a company, be a CEO, get rich. And then because of that verse and other experiences in college, with my business mind, Scripture says, what does it profit man or woman to gain the whole world and what? Lose their soul. So if that's true, a person's soul is of immense value, eternal value. So I began to think, I think I'd like to invest my vapor in people for eternity more than I wanted to make money. I still would kind of like to be rich. I never lost that desire, but the desire to see people's souls impacted for the kingdom became a greater desire. And then ultimately that's led us to China, where we saw a greater need to see people's souls impacted for the gospel. So let's say, as the Lord wills, I will do this and that. And my summer's been like that. I landed from China back in Florida on a Wednesday, May 13th, and our daughter had a health crisis, was being flown back to D.C. My wife and I drove out of our driveway on Saturday. I was still in jet lag. It's the Lord's will. It was not my plan, then it was not my plan for the summer. Audrey and I were living in a one-bedroom efficiency, and my wife's like, this is not sustainable. We need to figure out how to make this work. But, that was not my plan, but that was the Lord's will. And it says, as the Lord's will, I'll do this and that. And I don't think we always have to say it. Like sometimes I'll be like, Lord willing, I'll see you next Tuesday. But I do, in my emails or texting, I'll say, My flight's scheduled Saturday. I hope to be home then. Because I don't know, right? We don't know. And so there is a sense of my vocabulary can reflect, maybe in a helpful way. I don't always say, Lord willing, I'll see you, like Estella and I are having lunch. I still don't think you should have picked that most expensive restaurant in State College. But I'm taking, so it's not like I say, hi, Estelle, Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow at noon and take you for lunch. I don't have to always say that. But I think there's an attitude, a sense that it's the Lord's will, and maybe I'll break my leg and not be able to go out with Estelle to this expensive restaurant. Okay, let's look at Habakkuk as we transition to sharing a little bit about China. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. We serve with Cru. We were with Jesus Film out of our Orlando office. And so I thought when we got ready to leave here, we would move to Orlando. I'd ride my bike to our office. And Audrey goes, my wife grew up, Audrey, most of you know Audrey, she grew up below Miami. They had to go north to get to Miami. But she goes, I'm not living in Orlando. I'm living by the ocean. So we found a place that was near a road that has the causeway bridges that go over the lagoons. So we don't have the expensive beach house, but because of being a minute off that road, 6 miles from the beach, we could be there in 10 minutes. So we found this house. My wife's really happy. And when I'm at the ocean, it's just so bizarre to live there where it's like, I guess I'll go exercise. It's sunny. It's supposed to rain. It didn't. I'll go jog at the ocean. It's just 10 minutes away. When I'm there, it feels like eternity. Like something about looking where you can just see to the horizon in all directions. I miss the mountains. I just absolutely love the mountains of central Pennsylvania. But there's something about the ocean that feels like eternity. And so we have confidence that there's a day to somehow where the glory of the Lord, the earth will be filled with that, just like the waters cover the sea. And so when we were living in China, and even before that, trying to say, how could we be part of seeing the gospel go to the most difficult parts of the world? And that's what I was doing with Jesus Film. And so I've been able to be in Tibet. I've been able to be in Western Muslim China with outreach. There's in North China, Mongolian people background inside China. Shanghai, the big cities are basically materialistic, atheist, a little bit of Buddhism flavor, but primarily atheist. And so when we were there, what seemed like big barriers, we had confidence that there will be a day where this verse will come true. And it gave me confidence that's going to be true in Tibet. It's going to be true in Western China, that the gospel is powerful and somehow God's going to bring about his will, even when it doesn't seem like it from our point of view. I'm removed. Where I live, people are either Florida State University football fans or they are University of Florida football fans. And once in a while, University of Central Florida will pop up and be good for a while. And so nobody's a Penn State fan. I mean, there's some retirees I'll go, we are, when I'm wearing my shirt. And Penn State, But usually they're older than me and they're retiring and they used to live here or something, went to college here. I do not like to watch a taped football game after I know the score. Like if I'm traveling and I can't watch the game, a big game, to me it's still not fun to watch the game when I already know the score. There's that suspense. And when there's a night game, that suspense, I'm always like, oh no, we could lose. It's close. And then, if Penn State wins, she's all excited and they can't go to sleep. She can't go to sleep at night. But I had a confidence that was not like that. When I was in China, I knew God's kingdom is victorious. And so I can go out in that confidence that he's going to use the gospel to impact people that don't seem open now and part of his plan. So I want to go through and just give some stories. And feel free to do what you did, raise a hand. But next slide, please. I just want to go through some stories of impact. And you've been a part, as we represent you as a supported missionary, prayed by you, we really do feel like you've sent us out to China for those years, and even before that, and then as well as with the Jesus Film and now with church movements. So Audrey and I, this was when we were expecting Jason, and this is in Beijing. And so Audrey had an amazing impact on a number of women, and now is still keeping up with them. So it was actually her idea, like, let's do this. We had planned for a long time, but she was the one that said, let's go to China. So I wish she could be here. So next. Okay, this is Reed, his English name. He was from West China. He went to Xi'an, where the terracotta warriors are, if you've seen one of the great wonders of the world. He went to college there. It was there a missionary shared the gospel to somebody he knew, and that Chinese person led him to Christ. He grew, joined our work. At the time, he developed leadership, and then he became our national director of Cru for China. We had over 1,000 Chinese-born Chinese citizens on our staff, campus, Jesus Film, community, and church movements. Amazing person. You maybe are aware of some of the persecution going on now in China and the crackdown with technology and tracing and things. So most churches, when we lived there, could meet without too much trouble. Some would get to be about 100, then the government might get a little nervous and they'd split into two. In my city, we had one church that there was just a random 6-story office building, and you got off the elevator and they had one floor. You get off the elevator, there's a Red Cross window, and the glass doors off the elevator. So it wasn't secret in the way that it had been under Chairman Mao, but it wasn't like First Baptist Church of Tianjin, China. It wasn't. There's no sign. They were smart, but it wasn't like secret and code in an apartment building where they were whispering. That doesn't happen now. Most groups, if it's above 10, they're in trouble. So it's some places they get away with more, but it's really changed since we lived there. When that crackdown began to happen, Reed had crossed like 5 red lines in the government. He was the head of an organization that was foreign-run. There was money coming in from outside to help some of the projects. We had foreign staff in China, like us, so they were coordinating. We're part of a global organization. All those are threats to the communist government, to have structure and organization and power that's outside of their control. So when it got bad, they thought he would be disappeared and would never be seen again because of all those issues. So they got him out of the country. He actually got a seminary degree. He lives in Orlando, Florida now. So what's interesting is that I only met him once in country, but because we live so close to him, I'm able to work under his leadership to some projects with diaspora, like the global Chinese. There's so many Chinese leaving China, and so how to get the gospel to them. And so it's just been a privilege to work with this person. And we have a mixture of Mandarin and English. It's kind of fun. This next person's got a Penn State connection. The person on the right, his name's Simon. And when I was living here working with Asian Americans, the same group that the Mackins, John and Sandy worked with for a long time, we would do a freshman service, gospel service on the old main lawn the first Sunday before classes started. So the freshmen were there. We'd advertise it with flyers. A number of the groups sponsored it together. So I met him and 2 of his buddies because they looked Asian. Okay, so I'm working with Asians. So I just walked up, and Chinese American. He was born in Singapore, but grew up in Lehigh area. So I met him as a freshman. Okay, Audrey and I go back to China we had been there 2 years. We moved back. He came over with a group. I brought students for 3 years, so I lived here, and then John was bringing students over. Sandy came a couple of times, I think, one time. And he came as a student. So I was like, oh, this guy I met as a freshman, knew a couple of years. I'm hosting them in China. He joined as an intern, and then he was here serving. After he graduated for a couple of years, he brought students over again. That was his second time. He joined, went to China, was doing campus ministry, and different times I'd be in his area and got to visit with him. So this summer, that's kind of the beginning of the story. This summer, I was asked to lead a team to his city. It's where the pandas are from. And I was sitting in his living room. His wife's from China. he looks Chinese, is ethnically Chinese, so he doesn't draw the attention that I would, even though he's a U.S. citizen. 3 children. I'm sitting in his living room going, it was 24 years ago. I met him on Old Main Lawn, and now I get to work with him. And so I said to him one day, I don't know. I actually said this verse, and I said, I don't know how much vapor I have left. None of us know tomorrow, right? Any of our vapors could end tomorrow. But just from a human point of view, I'm closer to the end of my vapor now than I was at 24. And so I said to him, I'd love to use some of my vapor to help you. How can I help you? And so we're hoping to take professionals to work with them in the community. They have a high-tech zone and then campus. So you're invited. I have a sign-up sheet. We're not leaving until 5 people sign up. We're going to lock the doors. But we'd love to have some of you go next summer. So that's Simon. So you had a part of him, you're on our support team. We got to live here. We grew up here. And I can't believe I met him in 2002. I can't believe. I'd known him for 24 years, right? Next. These were some students we met in his city, and I was struck. And if you had somebody here tomorrow, next week, talking about China, they could give you the exact opposite message I am. It's a massive country, high population, and you can have totally opposite experiences, and it really is true, and it happened there. But in this city, these 3 guys all said they're not getting married, they're not having kids, they probably aren't going to get a good job. I've never seen that level of kind of emptiness or lack of hope or just despair. They feel like things are falling apart. And they did all the right things, went to the right kindergarten, learned English, did all these right things. And they might not get a job. The unemployment rate's huge for college graduates. So it was, in one sense, the light of the gospel shines bright when there's difficulty. So it's a special time for the gospel. Next one's an interesting story about a person named Caleb. We were helping a church network that was sending Chinese to Pakistan to be missionaries. Pakistan borders China, so if people in Pakistan in the trades can learn Mandarin, that helps them with trade into China. And so they're missionaries that go out from China to Pakistan and teach Chinese to people who want to learn it for their career. And it's a way to have the gospel go into that country. So that's how I met Caleb. And he came to our city. We were able to hire him, and we were doing missions training. We probably did about 100 courses over 10 years, different networks on how they could have a foundation for missions scripturally, strategy, what are the ways they could work, and what are the things they could do to get ready. So he was trained. He was on then the national team for that ministry to do missions training in the whole country. And so he was just a dear brother. Things have fallen apart. He was working full-time with me, and then full-time with his team, and then that, because of the persecution, they've had to change that. So he was being a house church pastor in our city, but because of he was like a campus church. People graduate and leave. He has no income right now. And I'm sitting there, we were just sitting in a park, kind of openly hiding, like sitting below a tree. We wouldn't get noticed, but it's not like wrong to be there, but we just didn't want to be out in the open. He's telling me this. I'm thinking about what kayak I might buy next, and he has no income. So we're actually trying to see how we can support him financially, but still has an amazing heart for the gospel. This is the fun person I want to tell you about. I had hurt my back in China, and the physical therapist said, you really should swim. And I used to lifeguard at the natatorium, so I knew how to swim. But I started swimming as a way to get exercise and rode my bike a lot, but swimming was better than jogging. And so one day I met these 2 guys in line and said hi. And so, start swimming. And then I noticed one of the guys I had said hi to was next to me. So I said in Chinese, 你的游泳还不错，游泳比较快. Your swimming's pretty good. You swim fast. And he said to me, because I was speaking Mandarin, he goes, I am not Chinese. He's from Mongolia, and he was an international student in China studying Mandarin. I'm like, oh, okay. So I met his friend, this person, who was Chinese. He was a swimmer. He had taught swimming and part-time job here and there. So we used to swim. We met like once a week, twice a week, came to our son Jared's graduation. I can't believe my son graduated from college, high school, that many years ago. But came to my son's high school graduation. He was in filmmaking, so we went to one of his productions he did in college. And so when I would go up to Beijing to go to that school where we were training Caleb, I'd stay overnight with him. His name's Tao, stay with Tao. And just kept up with him. It was just kind of fun. We'd go swimming, go to the gym, have meals together. And so then as we left that city, I'd still come back and travel. And he'd come spend the night at our hotel, and we'd hang out. And so I got to see him in May. Okay, he makes movies now, and people know his name. And I'm like, this is little Tao from the pool. And what he said to me is so interesting. He said, I have almost no friends because people want to be my friend so I can help them out with a job or a connection or be in a movie or be in the production of it. And he said, you're one of the few I have. And I was there going, oh my gosh. And he's not made any commitment to faith, but we had some, if you see the book on the right, it's a children's Bible. And he had asked me about parenting, and so I took a children's Bible to him. But, it's just wild to think that, we represented you, your church, this church, our church, impacted Tao. And who knows where the seed of the gospel is going to go with his life. But he's talked about, he goes, what you said about family being more important than jobs, I've been doing that. And I'm like, oh, he's trying to put his wife and daughter above his work. And that's unusual sometimes. So that's Tao. This last one was from May. This is the Tianjin International Christian Fellowship. The government requires us to have a place, when I was there and now, have a place to meet. It's open. It's approved by the government. You have to show your passport to get in. They only want foreigners to go in. They have a lot of international students that are given scholarships by the government as part of their diplomacy. And so a lot of students from Africa, India. When I was there, we had Nepalese, students from Muslim countries. It's amazing, Russia, Europe. And so the International Fellowship sees their role to equip these young men and women for the gospel to go back to their countries and serve the church and his kingdom there. So we were able to do a training time in May, and I was able to be an elder there 9 years, and it was just such a joy to be back at that church again and see that they're still thriving. Okay, I'd like to go to the next one, please. Where's Billy? Billy, I need your help. Come on. Okay, come on, please come up. I want to give you my card. It's Jesus Film Card, which is not what I do now, but it's got a QR code that I want you to have. And it's got clips of the Jesus film that you can use. So everyone just take one. You might enjoy it. Just,
like one per person.
Well, she can have two.
Okay, I raised my hand because you said I could.
You can have two. You can have three. But we have the opportunity to help Christians in Mongolia, North Korea, Japan, China, make videos that would raise interest in the gospel. Short videos, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, a series of them. And so if you go to that website, there's a part called Conversation Starters, if you can look that up. And there are a series of short videos you might enjoy using with friends. There are all kinds of topics. For Riot, you might enjoy some of those because some are humorous, some are serious, some are high-tech, some are more of a drama, some have a surprise ending. But they are videos that I think you might enjoy with a neighbor, a family member. If you go to the website, you see a short video, you can actually send the link through social media, texting, Facebook, email, through the system. So it's kind of fun way to like we said, conversation starters. Going from something of interest touches the heart as a bridge into the gospel. Okay, I need some questions. They said I have till 12:30, So one final point. Hopefully you have a couple questions. So to tie up James and Vapor, I think the challenge we face as believers, we're in the world, not of it, right? We're aliens, we're citizens of heaven. It doesn't always feel like it's a vapor in the beginning or the middle, right? We were able to go to Westchester from D.C. with our daughter as she was recovering. We saw our son and his wife when the baby was 4 weeks old. What do they want most? Sleep. It doesn't seem like it's going by real fast. But now you look and you go, oh, I can't believe how much she's changed, right? Now she looks at you, she smiles. She's 4 months old. So, but when I'm holding her, I'm like, Jared, that's what you were like, And so the vapor is what feels true at the end. I used to always hate it at Penn State with the Asian American students. When they're seniors, we'd have a senior night. And I can't believe I'm a senior. I'm going to graduate. I can't believe I'm leaving here. And you all take advantage of the time here. I'm like, you don't believe James 4? It goes by fast. It almost feel fast. And so by faith, I think in the beginning and middle of a school year or semester or a job, whatever we're in, I think it's easy to forget the eternal values because it doesn't seem like a vapor. But it says it's a vapor. And people older than me could probably, do I hear an amen? Oh, I was talking about Neil, not you. Carrie is much younger than me, but Neil is much older than me. I can't believe when we took turns driving our kids to youth group here. I can't believe it's been so long. I can believe, right? It's a vapor. It's short. Seems like it was yesterday. So, anything about China? China's kind of like the U.S. in the sense that you've got the Northeast to like Florida. So there's a part of China that's like Hawaii, year-round in the south. And then where we lived was kind of like Washington, D.C. weather. So it's kind of not too terrible cold winters, but because we were on our bicycle and it was flat and windy and dusty, it felt cold. So it kind of depends on the part of the country, just like here. So where I am, it's been in the mid-90s in Florida. So I was at my daughter's in Pittsburgh, and I'm like, the air is so dry here, so it's not humid. Good question.
Mark, the slide you showed was international.
Yes.
Where did that take place?
Tianjin, China. That was our city.
So they let aliens congregate because that's fine.
And they would rather control us than have us meet in homes or, they'd rather know where we are, know what we're doing, and then know that we're honoring their guideline by only allowing foreigners in. If I'm meeting in my house, I can have Chinese come in. That's not illegal. So they'd rather us meet together openly. It's not always easy. There's some issues we face, but there's some harassment. But like the Beijing International Christian Fellowship probably had about 3,000 members because a number of business people, government people, agencies working with the government, all kinds of global people that IBM, big companies that were there. In our church, we had a Chinese-speaking service for foreigners, if that makes sense. So people from Singapore, they, as one church, but two services, they had Mandarin-speaking service. We also were part of a Korean-speaking service. There are a lot of Koreans in our city.
You or any of the international colleagues, Chinese folks, being questioned or harassed?
I mean,
I mean, as a person, a non-Chinese person.
they didn't care that we believed. They didn't care. The government didn't care that we followed Christ because we're foreigners. And so that Mongolian person, Tao Tao's friend I first met, who's the good swimmer, and I'm Mongolian, he came to our fellowship. I was like, it was funny to meet people. I could take them to my fellowship, on Easter or whatever. And he actually went to another city and came to Christ. He came to Christ at another international fellowship of another city.
Yeah, for the locals where you were, people you interacted with, what would be like the top two concerns that you saw that were repetitive amongst the locals? Their concerns about life.
Yeah, just Chinese are very practical. And so even when we're sharing the gospel, we have to be careful that God, what is John 10:10? God loves you, right? Christ came to have life and have it more abundantly. That could be translated into, if I believe in Jesus, I'll get a good job. So in sharing the gospel, we had to clarify that I think God does honor, if you're honest and you're living with your, having 3 wives, there is sometimes a physical benefit. If I'm not using drugs, I'm going to have a better life. But we had to try to clarify that we need a savior, not a personal financial advisor that's going to give you money. He's a bank. So I'd say, I think it's changed. When we first went there, people had parents and uncles who had died under Mao. So there was just this sense that I've got to get ahead of everybody. It was corrupt. So the system's kind of out of their control. So most people feel they got to make it because you don't know if the government's going to fall apart tomorrow. So, and the stock market was rigged. The bank savings are rigged. And so people would buy an apartment because you could do that when we were there. And that was just going up huge. All the people going from countryside to the city for work. So people started buying 2, 3, 4 homes because you didn't invest in the stock market, didn't put your money in the bank. Well, that crashed about 3 years ago. And so people have lost their life savings in 2 weeks. And it's bad. It's really bad. So they call it where they're fleeing the sinking ship. That they're just huge numbers of people. Like supposedly Tokyo has 800,000 Chinese. Peru has 400,000 Chinese. Like they're just going everywhere to try to just make a living. Billy? Oh, sorry.
I know religious freedom, Christian freedom differs somewhat from province to province, but it seems like over the past 20 or 30 years, sometimes you get reports that Christians in the church over there are being really persecuted. Sometimes it's not so persecuted. What do you think, in terms of the government, what are the factors that determine whether the Christian faith will get more persecuted or less persecuted?
So we have some people that might have a better answer than me, and some people disagree on this answer, but with respect of the Chinese people and the amazing culture and history and language, and I tell my wife I just feel so at home in China. When I landed in April, I was just like, oh, I'm home again. So I have tremendous respect for it. It's not a government system based on law. Based on power, absolute power. So the courts are not independent. We complain about our courts, but I saw a pro volleyball player come to Christ. When he was in high school, his high school coach had to bribe the college volleyball coach to get him into college, volleyball team. My son got to work for Apple. He didn't have to bribe anybody. He just applied and he got it or didn't get it, So it's not based on law. So we got to do a missions training in one area, and it was a building, like a 3-story building on the side of the road. And they said, this is our prayer and training center for our church network. I'm like, here by itself on this road? I said, how do you do this? Because I said, can I take a walk? They go, oh, yeah, you can go wherever you want. I'm like, in the daylight? And he said, oh, the mayor's wife's a Christian. So they didn't have any trouble. And so Christians, I think, are looked at as being politically neutral, but because there's so many, they are a threat. Because if they organized and opposed the government, they could overthrow the government. They're not planning to, but that's what the government sees. So it's uneven because it's just how things are enforced. Like, we'd have people get kicked out, and you're like, I should have been kicked out. Why were they kicked out? They didn't do much, but they were kicked out. But it could have been that in their part of the city, somebody wanted a promotion and they were hyper-vigilant. So a lot of times we didn't even know what you know. We just tried to be wise and were the lines that we could work into. But it is uneven. Even in a city, it's uneven, the persecution. But now it's more broadly because of surveillance and the Xi Jinping's policies being implemented. So he didn't step down after 8 years. So he's the first person since Mao that didn't do 8 years. First premier. So I don't think it's a lot. It's very complex. Some places are so economically booming that they kind of don't care. You know, some places it's harder to hide in the countryside because everybody knows everybody. So sometimes you can hide in the city because you don't know your neighbors, and so it's so like there's stories you hear that are still amazing. They're doing X, Y, Z, and they had a gathering of 100 pastors somewhere. I'm mentoring a guy in Dallas from China that got out, and I'm like, you're having a meeting with 100 pastors? And it's on Zoom. Isn't that hacked? We don't know. So, and people are being put in jail, and some of them are willing to do that. So. Okay, well, I will be here after the service until Estelle drags me out. And I so appreciate the partnership we get to have to represent you. And I'm hoping to use a lot more of my vapor in China, in the city where Simon lived, in the city in Beijing. And so if this was being videotaped, I wouldn't say it online, but love to have you consider going with us. It'll be a week or two, depending on schedules, probably April, summer, and fall. So may God bless your vapor.